The hidden comfort that makes us reject reality. What if the thing that makes us most comfortable is also the very reason we refuse to see the world as it really is? What if there's a hidden luxury, not of wealth or convenience, but of illusion, a psychological cushion we all carry that blinds us to truth, distorts our decisions, and seduces us away from the raw, unfiltered nature of reality? This isn't about material comfort. It's not about a soft bed or a warm meal. It's about the comfort of belief, of certainty, of the stories we tell ourselves to make existence bearable. And it's terrifying because it works so well. We all want to believe we see the world as it is, but the truth is, most of us see the world as we need it to be safe, meaningful, fair, controllable. That's the hidden comfort. That's the trap. Right now, you and I are living inside a bubble of interpretation. But every thought you have, every judgment you make, every reaction you feel, it's all filtered through the lens of your personal narrative. And that narrative, it's built on assumptions designed to protect you from the unbearable complexity of existence. You assume people are mostly predictable. You assume tomorrow will be like today. You assume your memories are accurate and your emotions are justified. But none of that is guaranteed. In fact, most of it is fiction. And yet, we cling to it desperately because to let go would mean standing naked in a universe that offers no guarantees, no inherent meaning, no cosmic fairness. That's the reality we reject, the one where we are not the center, where justice isn't promised, and where things can happen without reason.
Click subscribe to this channel to get more profound insights.
Let me give you an example. Have you ever noticed how quickly we explain away things that threaten our worldview? If someone we admire does something cruel, we say they were under pressure. If something unfair happens to us, we say everything happens for a reason. If the future feels uncertain, we say it'll all work out. These aren't just comforting phrases. They're psychological armor. They protect us from the terror of randomness, of chaos, of meaninglessness. But here's the cost. Every time we reach for that comfort, we step further away from truth. But we trade clarity for security. And over time, we lose our capacity to engage with life as it really is. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying we should live in despair or rip away every comforting thought. I'm saying we should become aware of what we're doing, because awareness is power. Awareness gives us the choice to lean into discomfort instead of running from it. And that's where real transformation begins. Think about this. What if the moments in your life that hurt the most, the ones that shook your assumptions, that shattered your beliefs, what if those were the only moments when you actually saw reality clearly? What if pain, not pleasure, is the gateway to truth? There's a reason ancient philosophers, mystics, and even neuroscientists emphasize the value of suffering, not because it's noble, but because it interrupts the illusion. It forces us to confront what we've ignored. When someone dies, when a relationship ends, when we fail, suddenly the world feels raw and real in a way it never did before. And in that rawness, we see not only the fragility of life, but the beauty of it. We realize how precious time is, how unpredictable the future is, how little control we really have. That's terrifying, but it's also liberating. Because once you stop pretending you're in control, you can finally start living with intention. So let's ask a brutal question. What parts of reality are you rejecting right now? just to keep yourself comfortable? Is it the truth about your job, your relationship, your health, your mortality, your identity? Most of us lie to ourselves in small ways every day. I have time. I'm fine. This isn't a big deal. But those small lies accumulate, and soon we build an entire life on top of them. A life that looks successful from the outside, but feels hollow on the inside. Because deep down, we know we're not living in alignment with what's real, we're living in alignment with what's easy. And here's the kicker, the world rewards that. And the world applauds illusion. It sells us happiness in the form of products, meaning in the form of trends, and self-worth in the form of likes and followers. It tells us to curate, to filter, to present, not to see. But seeing is the beginning of wisdom. Seeing is what separates the philosopher from the sleepwalker. Seeing is what brings you back to the present moment, back to your breath, back to the uncomfortable but sacred truth that you are a fragile, but night creature in an infinite and indifferent universe. And yet you are conscious. You are alive. You can choose. That is the miracle. So here's what I want to leave you with for now. The comfort that makes us reject reality is not just emotional, it's existential. It's the comfort of meaning without questioning, of safety without awareness, of identity without introspection. But if you dare to look beyond it, if you dare to question even your most cherished beliefs, you'll find something far more powerful than comfort. You'll find freedom. The freedom to live without illusion, the freedom to act without pretense, and the freedom to be fully awake, even when it hurts. The lie of meaning, why we'd rather be wrong than alone. There's a strange and haunting truth about being human. We would rather be wrong with others than be right alone. It's not just a social instinct, it's a survival mechanism buried deep in our psychology. For most of our history, being cast out from the tribe meant death. So we adapted. We learned to mimic, to agree, to conform. But the cost of that adaptation still haunts us today. In the modern world, where physical survival is rarely tied to groupthink, our minds still cling to collective beliefs, especially those that offer meaning. Because to stand alone in truth is to risk everything: connection, identity, coherence. And so, without realizing it, we often choose comforting lies over isolating truths. We would rather share a delusion than face the terrifying silence of meaninglessness on our own. Think about how powerful that drive is. We join belief systems, ideologies, political tribes, spiritual movements, not just because they offer answers, but because they offer belonging. They give us a sense of shared reality. And when everyone around us believes what we believe, it feels like truth. But it's not truth. It's consensus. And consensus is not evidence. It's comfort. You can be surrounded by people who affirm your worldview and still be utterly wrong. And yet, we cling to that affirmation like a life raft. Because the alternative, standing alone in the vast, uncertain ocean of existence, is unbearable for most of us. This is why we construct narratives. Not just personal stories, but cultural myths, religious doctrines, even scientific dogmas. Narratives give structure to chaos. They tell us who we are, why we're here, what matters. But here's the paradox: the stronger the narrative, the more reality has to be bent to fit it. And if reality doesn't fit, we don't change the narrative, we reject reality. We ignore data. We demonize dissent. We silence the voice inside us that says something doesn't add up, but because to question the narrative is to risk exile, and exile, even in the age of individualism, still feels like death. But what if exile is where real freedom begins? What if the moment you stop needing to be right in someone else's system is the moment you start becoming real in your own? What if truth isn't something you find in a crowd, but something you hear in solitude? That's the path of the philosopher. That's the path of the awakened. It's not a glamorous road. It involves loss. The loss of certainty, and the loss of identity, sometimes even the loss of community. But in that loss, something deeper emerges: integrity. The unshakable, knowing that you're no longer living someone else's script. You're living your own. Let's take this even further. Why do we cling to meaning so desperately? Because meaning gives us a sense of control. If we can label an experience, we can contain it. If we can explain pain, we can endure it. But reality doesn't always come with labels. Sometimes things just happen. Sometimes life is brutal, random, unjust. And in those moments, our craving for meaning becomes a weapon turned inward. We blame ourselves. We invent reasons. We tell ourselves, there must be a lesson here, or maybe I deserved this. But what if there isn't a reason? What if some things just are? Can we still live with purpose even when there's no grand design? Here's a deeper question. What if the meaning of life is not something given, but something made? What if reality is neutral, and it's our interpretation that gives it color? That's not nihilism. That's radical responsibility. It means we stop outsourcing purpose to institutions, to gods, to ideologies, and we start crafting it ourselves through our actions, our relationships, our creativity. And that kind of meaning isn't fragile. It doesn't collapse when beliefs are challenged. It grows stronger. Because it's not built on avoiding the void, it's built on facing it. So now we're left with a choice. Do we keep clinging to the lie of meaning that makes us feel included, even if it keeps us asleep? Or do we risk stepping into the unknown, shedding the comfort of consensus, and forging a truth that's ours alone? That's the hidden cost of the comfort we talked about earlier. It's not just emotional ease, it's the surrender of autonomy. The more we crave meaning from others, the less we cultivate it within ourselves. And that's how we become prisoners of belief, beautifully decorated cages built from inherited ideas. But here's the wildest part. The moment you stop needing to be right, the moment you stop needing others to agree, you become free in a way most people never experience. You become dangerous not to others, but to systems that depend on your unconscious loyalty. You become alive not in the fantasy of certainty, but in the raw electric pulse of truth. And maybe, just maybe, you discover that being alone with reality is better than being surrounded by illusion. The seduction of the mask, why we prefer the performance over the person. There's a reason we love masks. They're not the literal ones, but the psychological ones, the roles, the identities, the curated selves we wear like armor in a world obsessed with perception. And the deeper truth. We don't just wear them for others, we wear them for ourselves. Because the mask offers protection, it offers clarity. It offers a script in a world that often feels like unscripted chaos. But here's the paradox. The more we perform, the more we forget who we are. Not because the performance is fake, but because it becomes so effective that even we start believing it. And slowly, we become more invested in maintaining the illusion than discovering the truth underneath. That's the seduction of the mask. It promises control, but robs us of authenticity. You see this everywhere. On social media, we present the highlight reel. In conversations, we say what's expected. In relationships, we become who they need us to be, and we justify it. We say, "I'm just adapting," or "I need to protect myself," or "no one wants the real me." But here's the dangerous part. When the performance becomes habitual, it doesn't just fool others, it fools us. We start mistaking the mask for the mirror. We start confusing applause for love. And we lose touch with the messy, complex, vulnerable human inside. The one who doesn't always have the answers. The one who doubts, who weeps, who hopes, who breaks. Why do we prefer the performance? Because it gives us control over perception. And perception, in our minds, equals power. If others perceive us as intelligent, we feel intelligent. If they think we're kind, we feel kind. If they envy our lives, we feel successful. But these are reflections, not realities. But they're shadows on the cave wall. And the problem with living for perception is that it's never stable. It shifts with trends, with moods, with algorithms. One moment you're admired, the next you're forgotten. One moment you're praised, the next you're criticized. And if your identity is tied to that performance, then your sense of self rises and falls with every like, comment, or smile. Here's something brutal to consider. Most of us have spent more time constructing our image than understanding our essence. We've spent more effort controlling how we're seen than asking who we actually are. And maybe that's because we're afraid of what we'll find. Maybe we suspect that underneath the mask, there's not a polished hero, but an uncertain wanderer. Someone who's still figuring it out, still healing, still searching. But what if that's exactly who we're meant to be? What if the raw, unfiltered self is not the problem, but the path? The ancient Stoics said, "Know thyself," not brand thyself, not market thyself. But no, self-knowledge is not glamorous. It doesn't sell, it doesn't trend, but it liberates. Because once you know who you are beyond the roles, beyond the expectations, you stop needing to perform. You stop needing to impress. You become rooted. And from that place of rootedness, you can actually connect. Not mask to mask, but soul to soul. And that's what we're starving for. Not more admiration, not more validation, but more realness. More moments where we don't have to pretend, where we can say, "This is me, unfiltered, imperfect, alive." So here's a question that might shake you. Who are you when no one's watching? When the cameras are off, the phone is down, the audience is gone, who remains? That person, that silent witness, that's the real you. And if you've spent years avoiding them, now is the time to reintroduce yourself. Because that version of you is the only one capable of real growth. The mask can chase goals, but only the person can evolve. The mask can win praise, but only the person can feel joy. But the mask can survive, but only the person can truly live. And look, this isn't a call to abandon all roles. Life requires some performance. You can't walk into every room as your rawest self. But what you can do is know when you're performing and why. You can make the mask a tool, not a prison. You can learn to take it off when it's safe, and even when it's not, because sometimes showing up as your real self is the most rebellious, the most powerful thing you can do in a world addicted to illusion. So I'll leave you with this. What would your life look like if you stopped performing and started revealing? What possibilities would open up if you stopped managing perception and started cultivating presence? Because in the end, the mask may win you applause, but only the person underneath can experience love, truth, and the kind of freedom that no camera can capture. The final escape, why facing reality is the only way to be free. There comes a point in every life, quiet, often unannounced, where the illusions we've clung to begin to crack. The roles we've played feel hollow. The beliefs we inherited no longer satisfy. The performances that once earned applause now feel exhausting. And in that moment, we're faced with a terrifying, beautiful question. What if there's nothing left to run from except ourselves? You see, the final escape isn't from society or failure or even pain. The final escape is from the illusion that we ever needed escape at all. Because what we've been fleeing isn't the world, it's reality. And reality, when faced directly, is not our enemy. It's our liberation. Why do we avoid it? Because it's raw. It doesn't flatter us. It doesn't bend to our expectations. Reality says, you are not owed anything. It reminds us of our mortality, our smallness, our powerlessness in the face of time. It doesn't care about our resumes, our followers, our carefully curated identities. It simply is indifferent, unfiltered, relentless. And that's why we build so many distractions. We fill our lives with noise, with entertainment, with goals that look good but mean nothing. We chase significance, not because we're shallow, but because we're scared. Scared that if we stop chasing, we'll have to face the silence. And in that silence, we might discover that we don't know who we are, or worse, that we've never truly lived. But here's the paradox. The very silence we fear is where freedom begins. When we stop running, when we stop numbing, when we stop pretending, we come face to face with the truth. And the truth is this: you don't need to be anything other than awake. Not successful, not admired, not even healed. You just need to be here, present, conscious, willing to see things as they are, not as you wish them to be. That's the beginning of wisdom, the moment you stop negotiating with reality and start listening to it. And what does it say? It says, you are temporary. So is your pain. So is your joy. So is everything you're clinging to. That's not meant to depress you. It's meant to unchain you. Because once you accept impermanence, you stop wasting time. You stop postponing the life you want. You stop waiting for permission. You realize that freedom isn't found in escaping discomfort, it's found in embracing it. In walking straight into the fire with your eyes open, knowing that truth burns, but it also purifies. The people who walk this path, the ones who face reality instead of rejecting it, they're different. You can feel it. They're grounded, but not rigid. Honest, but not cruel. They have a quiet power, not because they control everything, but because they no longer need to. They've made peace with uncertainty. They've stopped looking for guarantees. They've stopped outsourcing their worth. And in doing so, They become truly dangerous not to others, but to the systems that depend on our blindness. They can't be manipulated because they no longer fear truth. They can't be bought because they no longer need approval. They are free not because they escaped the world, but because they finally saw it clearly.